Hello YouTube, this is the Plastic Commando coming to you today from deep behind enemy lines. Well, it's been a while since I've been able to get a video up. We are in the midst of a home remodel project, and some things take priority in life, and my hobby room has been turned upside down and been inaccessible for a period of time, but I have managed to sneak out a few pieces and work on a few little things during this project. So one of the things that I'll be doing in terms of further customization for Axis Allies WW1 1914 is bringing some custom tanks to the game that certainly are more representative of the countries involved in this conflict, in the war, versus the out-of-box standard version tanks that all countries tend to share. So what we're going to be looking at today are the custom French Renault FT tanks, or commonly known as the FT-17 French Light Tank, that are available from shapeways.com. And I'll just pan the camera up here just to kind of show the tanks that again you can find on shapeways.com. These of course are digital representation. The sculptor is it's made by 4-post D6. It's 6mm 1/285 scale. Of course, the Renault FT tanks. I will say that from the time I'd bought these probably back in April of this year, and from the time that I bought them, looks like they've actually went up about $2.50. So that's a bit unfortunate, but you do get on the purchase, you do get 4 tanks, and I have purchased, again back in April, I purchased a quantity of 2, so I've got a total of 8 tanks. And I plan on using perhaps maybe about 6 or so for my French army, and then perhaps a couple for the United States. The United States did, under permission, utilize the plans and designs of this FT tank for their own manufacturing. And we'll certainly put a couple of those in there just to kind of enhance the look of the Americans. But the Renault FT tank, just a little bit of history about this, may not be commonly known. I guess when most people think of 20th century tank warfare, they tend to credit the Germans, obviously, with advances in tank technology that was made prior to World War II, and then during World War II, the Germans, and then perhaps to some extent the Russians, get a lot of credit for their advancement in tanks. However, the Renault FT-17 tank was really the precursor to the 20th century tank that we've all come to know, because it had a fully rotating turret, which was basically unseen at the time of World War I. And so this rotating turret really, in my opinion, was the precursor to the modern tank. It had a compartment. Well, the engine compartment was in the back, and then it was a 2-man tank. One that controlled the main gun, and then, of course, the driver were in the front compartment. It was actually a small tank, again, just 2-man. Approximately 3,000 of the FTs were produced by 1918 by the French, and as indicated earlier, the United States also produced a similar version, the M1917 tank, light tank, toward the end of the war. And the tank itself, it was a 4-cylinder gasoline engine. Of course, these top tanks, they weren't known for their fast moving capacity, or maneuverability rather. But it did. The French did have a 37mm main gun. Also, they did produce some with a fitted machine gun instead. And the tank itself did make a presence in World War I. with the U.S. Just very briefly toward the end of the war. And but we are going to introduce these into the game because they're very representative, certainly, of the tanks that not only France produced. That was just revolutionary in tank warfare, but again, just to bring a little bit more uniqueness to the game itself, and the again, the type of individualized tanks that each army would have in their arsenal. Post-war, a number of nations purchased these tanks, and they continue to make a presence even in post-World War I, even up to World War II in some nations as well. So, just real quick, the color scheme that I've painted these tanks, and actually before I get to that, just to kind of go back to shapeways.com. These tanks actually only come in a very smooth, fine, detailed plastic. It's a clear plastic. They're extremely detailed, though, and just to kind of give you an idea, just with the digital representation of the tanks, you can see the digital highlights. Now, of course, all digital photos, they're not in particularly perhaps as detailed when they're actually produced, but I will say that this one does capture a lot of the detail that you're going to see in this digital representation. And so what I did in preparing these tanks for painting, just used a simple primer, which again, similar steps that you've seen perhaps in prior videos of mine. Just did a basic gray primer, and used my typical Tamiya blue for the French. And then once that spray dried, the next step, I used Army Painter soft tone. Did a light brush of soft tone stain onto the tank, and then once that dried, followed up with on this particular set, I actually did use something a little bit different. I used some Vallejo blue wash. It's the game color wash from Vallejo, and this, in my opinion, adds a little bit more richness to a lot of the detail. The Army Painter soft tone stain give it a bit more of a gritty look, a dirty look as well, that I do like, but I wanted to capture and highlight a few more of the details. So on this particular one, I did use the Vallejo blue wash, which gives the blue itself a little bit more richness, and I think it turned out really well. And then, of course, at the very last stage, I decaled the tank roundel with the decals that you'll find from I-94 Enterprises, which I just think are excellent, and did a good job, highlighting and finishing out these tanks. I'll try to zoom in here just a bit more to kind of give you the detail of the tank. You'll be able to see some of the darker highlights, which are from the Army Painter soft tone shade, and then you'll see some of the bluer tint, bluer highlights, which again would be from the Vallejo blue wash. So I think overall it turned out really well. Very happy with the result, and I look forward to getting these onto my game board as soon as possible. And I plan to have a few more videos of individualized Army unit tanks for other nations coming up in the future, such as Germany, Italy, and we'll have a few others as well, Austro-Hungarian Army, and but we'll have those up as we can certainly get to the hobby. Again, with the remodel that we're doing, it's and then working. Life just seems to get in the way of our hobbies. I think we can all relate to that. So in any event, just wanted to share what I've been up to lately, and hope you guys are well, and I will be putting up other videos as we can certainly get to those. Hope you guys have a really great day. Hope you have a blessed day. This is the Plastic Commando, over and out.